Hello and welcome to episode 69, How to Promote Wellness and Lifestyle Brands Through PR.
Welcome to the PR Playbook Podcast, the only podcast giving you actionable skills and advice you need to execute a strategic PR program. Warning: what you hear next may lead to brand awareness and increased sales and customer exposure. Now here's your host, Rinjini Joshua.
Hi, everybody. Today we are talking to Nicole Dunn from Pellier Media. She's the CEO and founder of a PR agency specializing in wellness, health, lifestyle brands, among other things. Hi, Nicole. Great to have you on today on the PR Playbook Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. I love it. Thanks for my great intro.
Yeah. Oh, well, since I probably botched it a little bit, why don't you start by giving us just a quick background on your expertise and bio, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. I am originally from Massachusetts, and I always wanted to be in television. I used to go to the bus stop every single day, and my best friend from kindergarten would watch all the great shows like Love Boat, Gilligan's Island, Fantasy Island, and we were not allowed to watch TV. And so I lived vicariously through her storytelling. And basically, I ended up going to school and embellishing her stories and telling people that I had watched these TV shows when I, in fact, did not. And I ended up wanting to be in television. So I graduated from high school. I did 2 years of college in Massachusetts and transferred out to Cal State Los Angeles. And I got into television, and my first job was on The Weakest Link. I loved storytelling. I loved being a part of something bigger. And I actually did casting. So what I would do is I'd travel around the country and I would find interesting people in different categories to be on the show. And then during the show, I would sit in a room with writers and I would tell them all the facts about the people that I had learned by interviewing them. And then was the show.
That is a cool story. I feel like that's a whole nother podcast we should have, because you always wonder, like, how produced are these reality shows?
They're very pre-produced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I, worked in television for almost 15 years, a lot of good reality TV shows, some pretty bad ones too. Ended up at Dr. Phil, and then I hired a coach and I was looking for a career change. And she said, you should be doing PR. And here I am.
Wow. And you know what? It's so funny. We've actually worked quite a bit with Dr. Phil in the past for some science, tech, kind of wellness tech brands. But
Cool.
So that's a nice full circle. So when you got into PR, like, I guess we'll do a little bit of how to get into PR, I guess, here too. When you got into PR, I know it's a little bit of a shift from, production and things like that. How did you guys kind of get adjusted and find your niche?
Okay. So originally I had no idea what I was doing.
Of course.
And what I did was I joined a mastermind group, and one of the girls in the mastermind group had a client, and she said, when you're ready to do PR, let me know, because I have the perfect client for you. And I said, okay, great. And put that in the back of my brain. And then I went out testing. So I had 2 clients that were paying me very little, but I got them on TV. And I utilized the skills that I had from television and then brought them over into PR. And I didn't have Cision. I didn't have all the tools that you need to actually go out and do your job. I would just call people I knew and said, hey, do you have a contact at the Today Show? Hey, who do you know at CNN?
Right.
And I ended up getting a lawyer on CNN, on Nancy Grace's shows all the time. And then I got a chiropractor on a show. And I was like, wow, this is pretty easy. I can do this. And then I went back to the girl and I said, hey, who's your client? Because I'm interested now. I've booked these.
I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go. And she said, his name is Tony Horton, and he has a VHS tape. It's P90X.
Oh my God. Did you just say VHS?
VHS. Yes, I'm dating myself. And I said, okay, great. So we interviewed and he said, well, why should I hire you? And I said, well, why not? You don't have anything else going on. And except your VHS tape, right?
VHS.
But he was actually a sensation. People, they have infomercials running all the time.
I have purchased P90X. Yes, I know.
So
I know.
And he literally, like, his whole thing was he wanted to be a household name. And so we started off doing some press in Washington, D.C. And a friend of mine worked at the press club and she said, well, we're doing this 5K race to raise money for journalism. Do you have anyone that you could do the warm up and then could do some press? And I said, yes, I do. His name is Tony Horton. And she said, oh, he's really popular. And so what we did was he didn't have any press, but he had an infomercial that was really popular.
Right.
And we did the 5K and we did a workout for journalism and raised a bunch of money. And then we did a press conference, and the press conference was all about how our men and women in the armed forces are not fit to fight and they do not work out. And a lot of them are, or they did work out and then something came along in their life and they stopped working out and they were not fit to fight. So his whole mission was to get the men and women in serving our country in better shape. And we had CNN, we had The Hill, we had Bloomberg, we had all kinds of media that covered him because of that. And that was really my start of PR. And he was my first person.
I feel like, well, one, congratulations, because clearly Tony Horton is a household name.
Yes.
But I think that's a testament to also the timing of things, right? And how important timing and PR are together.
Oh,
yeah, because I mean, that was kind of almost like the beginning of this like workout at home craze where people were doing videos. Well, there's Tony Horton, and then there's that other guy who does the kickboxing.
Oh, the Taibo guy.
The Taibo guy. Yeah. So there was all of those, like that influx of people. And I feel like the P90X, I really feel like that's one of the things that kicked it off. I mean, other than, like Suzanne Summers back in the day and stuff. Stuff like that. I think also, wellness, health, lifestyle wellness, I feel like it's a really, really challenging space. So now you've represented Tony Horton. I think obviously you had a really nice leg up here, but I think, how did you kind of start creating when you guys had to kind of go back to the basics and start creating a PR plan for this? He's lifestyle wellness brand. Yeah. Where did you start? What were the different dynamics that you incorporated into creating a plan, a strategy for that?
Yeah, well, I think for Tony, Tony was a part of a brand, and the brand was P90X, and that was the parent company was Beachbody, and they actually were not okay with us doing personal PR at first with Tony. And so, because they did not want him to be bigger than the brand. And my feeling from the very start was that this is a guy that the brand and him go hand in hand, because without him, you don't have the brand, right? You don't have 90X stuff. So after we got through that little hurdle in the beginning, they really saw the value of what we were doing, because we built a plan around him that was not only is he promoting him, the trainer, the fitness, the motivator, but we're also talking about transformations that people had doing the program. Mm-hmm. We're also talking about the program. We're mentioning Beachbody. We're mentioning P90X. So once we had that all together, I mean, we were on a roll, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And I think, coming up with a plan, it's always ever changing. And because of the ebb and flow of the media cycle. And, there are certain times during the year when it's
beginning of the year.
Yeah. Beginning of the year, new year, new you. Yeah. And then like springtime, everybody's like, they've packed on the pounds during the winter and they want to get out and they want to work out. And, towards the end of the year, like avoiding sugar and going to holiday parties, which we so miss right now. But, so I think it's an ever-changing PR plan. And I wouldn't say, and fitness changed dramatically throughout the years, where it went from VHS, then it went to DVD, then it went to on demand. And then now it's like you get it on your app, you have it in your, I mean, I do the Peloton and I have it on my computer, I have it on my phone, I have it on my bike.
Yeah.
And so I think, you're always looking at the cycle of media. And like recently we had this big cycle of home workouts during the pandemic. And
right.
that was a great 5 months of time where we got to promote some of our clients like Bulldog Yoga and Interdimension TV, which was another yoga program. And so we took those programs and we had a perfect opportunity to marry in home workouts and the brands. So really
I love your examples because seasonality, again, timing is a big factor. I think people don't understand. And I think sometimes when people are creating, startups or something, they're creating a program, they're doing it around their timeline. Can you talk about how important it is to understand the audience's timeline and the media's timeline a little bit?
Yeah. We have just talked about this yesterday on one of our team calls. We had a particular client who did a short campaign. And the only reason we did a short campaign with this particular client was because that client had been with us before. And, the timing was not right. It was like the start of the year just didn't have enough about the particular topic matter. And then towards the end of the campaign, that's when it started hitting. It was like 3 months in, and then we have this season of allergies and seasonal allergies. And she talks a lot about seasonal allergies. So we got 5 TV segments in the last week for her.
Wow.
And so it goes to show you that timing is everything. And the media climate dictates sort of what's going on. And if you're trying to pitch a fitness segment during Black Lives Matters, you are going to get outweighed.
Yeah, you're done.
You're done. And people don't understand the cycle of it and looking at trends and looking at what's happening. And we follow Google Trends to look at what are people searching for so that we can make our pitches timely and topical. I think it's really important for people to understand PR takes time. It is not something that's going to happen overnight. Jack Canfield did a great interview with a woman that was interviewing him about his book. And he was talking about how long it actually took and what they had to do, for PR. And it was like, whoa, it took that long, but he's like a #1 bestseller of all time. And it's a consistent thing that you have to keep doing. And I think people think if they're not getting hits right away, they always think well, what are you doing with my money and my time and you have to remember that it's not about that. It's about the work that we're doing behind the scenes to be able to put you in a position so that you can get on TV or that you can get on a podcast or have an online article.
And when that trend hits, you can jump on it and people believe you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're right. When that trend happens, we've had clients that they're like, this is overwhelming. I can't do all these interviews. And for instance, we've got a client right now. He has talked about COVID-19 and the origins of COVID-19. And his whole theory based on science is that it was created in a lab. He's been saying this consistently. He's been on Fox, he's been on, and now other stations are starting to pick it up because the WHO is doing this big announcement. And, so there's a cycle to it, but in between the lulls, I think that's where the client is often questioning well, why am I doing this? And what's happening? And, you have to consider all things and timing is everything. I always say this, timing is everything. And you can't just say, oh, I'm going to be on the Today Show tomorrow because that is not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Yeah. I think that's a dynamic of PR. People have a hard time of understanding because sometimes it does work really fast, right? You don't know when it's going to work fast and you have to be flexible and nimble. And I think startups also, I try to encourage startups to maybe don't dive all the way into PR until you really have a plan laid out because you're going to be disappointed. If you're not ready for a long-term a marathon, if you will.
I also think if you haven't thought about your why and why you're doing it and
Yeah.
why you need PR, and you haven't thought about your whole marketing plan, because marketing and PR, they're kind of one, but they're not. We're doing something in conjunction with marketing, and marketing focuses a lot on sales. PR does not focus on sales. ROI, no, we are elevating your brand. We're building awareness for
Right.
the brand. And I feel like people often get that mixed up where they're like, well, but what about the ROI? And so I get that a lot,
I get it a lot too. Yeah. Okay. So what are some of, I like to share actionable things that people can try, people can like look into a little bit more. What are some of the key tactics when you're working with these wellness influencers, in particular, the space that you guys are in? I think it's really different because now we've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, we've got stories, reels, Facebook, whatever, all this video content, YouTube, Twitch, everything.
Yeah.
What are some of the like kind of go-to things that you guys incorporate into like personalities, for example,
Yeah.
or developing a wellness brand that has to kind of pick up some hype?
Yep.
Where do you guys go first?
Well, we typically come up with a PR plan. We then follow said PR plan. It's an open-ended thing where, you're looking at the trends, and then you're seeing where the person is getting the most attention. Also the brand, or let's take Tony Horton. Maybe he's on Facebook all the time and he's doing posts on Facebook all the time. That's probably, and he's not doing Instagram. You probably want to go first where you are, stick to one thing. I tell people to stick to one thing, build that up, build an audience, and then start branching out, because you know what? Content is king. If you can build up a lot of content that you can be able to then take and put on other avenues like your Instagram. I don't do a lot of TikToking. I am not a TikToker, but I know clients who are very successful on TikTok, like Drew Manning, the Fit to Fat to Fit guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's one.
Yes. Oh my God. That's so amazing.
Yes. And so he's on all of them, but he also has a team of people that are helping him. So
sure.
That's where I would suggest, if you're one person and you're doing it all, or maybe you have two people on your team, pick one to really focus and zoom in on. And I think the most important thing is like your why. Why are you doing it? Why are you helping people? What's the story behind it? What stories are coming out of your experience by being that said fitness trainer? Or what kinds of things are people asking you? And really focusing on the positive things that can help people live a happier, healthier life.
Yeah, I think what you hit on the head was answer questions that people have. Don't have your own. Sometimes when brands are coming up with content, they basically deliver what people think they want, that they want, rather than really answering questions that people are already asking you. Yeah. It's already out there. What they want to know is already out there.
Right now, the consumer is really dictating for brands the storylines, because they're the ones that are using the products, or they're following the person, and they are dictating sort of what is going on in the marketplace. And if you look at that and you look closely at your followers, I've had people come to me and they're like, well, I've written a book and nobody bought it. Well, you don't even have a platform. You don't have a website. You don't have you need to create some sort of an audience. Like, actually, who are you talking to? Who's your audience? So, I think most experts that are successful, they have an audience, they have a team, they stick to what is working for them at that said time. A lot of people that we work with, the brands that have an expert, they also have an online program. So they are specifically focused on online marketing. And then they're like, but wait, maybe there's something else that we could be doing. And that's when they come and say, well, we want to investigate PR.
Right.
And you have to educate people on PR and what it does and how it works. And it's not something that you just do once. You have to consistently work at it. And Jack Canfield, in that interview, he was saying, you have to do at least 1 to 2 interviews a day for like 5 years in order to get to a place where, and I was like, whoa.
You're like, that's a lot of pressure, Jack.
Yeah. But, my philosophy in the very beginning with Tony Horton was, let's just do a little bit of everything. We will be selective. Obviously, we're not going to do something that like isn't in his genre, is in his audience.
On
But
brand. Yeah.
yeah, let's do stuff that's on brand. So we did a little bit of everything: podcasts, online, TV, whatever it was that we could do, we did. And my thinking is like, you just never know where that journalist is going to go later on down the road. So
Yeah.
someone who might be working for, let's say, The Hill, then all of a sudden they're working for the Today Show, you know, you
Right.
just don't know. And then they're like, hey, I really loved that interview I did with Tony Horton.
Yeah.
Let's put him on the Today Show. So
Well, and I think that's another important thing is the media landscape is shifting constantly. So I have a trouble like really explaining to clients like, hey, like the person that's there today, like the reason that relationships are really important, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee you coverage because people are moving around all over the place. Their roles change, their interests change. So it's really just more about, like you said, kind of being on the pulse of trends. And I think that's a great hack that you actually mentioned was follow Google Trends, because then you can see what's happening in your space too.
We follow Google Trends. There's like a Google report that comes out. I think it's like a couple times a week, and it'll tell you exactly what people are searching for.
Amazing.
That there's a bunch of little hacks that you can do. I say, like, anyone who's just starting out, because we like to work with people who have a base. So they've done some PR first. And if you come to a PR firm and you have nothing, you have to remember that you have to build from nothing. So it takes a lot of time to just keep working your way up. You're at the bottom of the river. You got to work your way up to get the air.
Yeah.
So it's going to take some time. And, you know, that's a building process. So like I said, when you're first starting out, you want to do a little bit of podcasting. You want to do a little bit. And there's great hacks. Like you can, if you don't have any PR, you can go to HARO, which is Help a Reporter Out.
Yep.
You can go there and you can start answering queries and giving them exactly what they want. You know, a lot of these journalists, they get inundated with pitches every single day. So they've got 100, 200 pitches that they have to look through. Like, how are you going to read? Yeah. How are you going to read through that? Well, it's relationships, who you've done work with before. And another thing people don't understand is, like, you know, when you present an opportunity to them and they say, oh, I don't want to do that one. Well, you should do everything that's presented to you because it raises your level of an awareness.
Absolutely.
And also, the relationship with the publicist, like how much time, energy, effort that over the years that they've pitched these people. And
oh my God. I mean, we've had to have those conversations with people, and they're like, well, we only want these particular types of things and these particular, and you're like, just, you know, you need to lay a groundwork. Most of the companies we work with are startups. So it's like, you don't have enough. You need to build on that. And then if you want Wall Street Journal out the gate, I mean, you're going to have to give me something juicy, because they don't know who you are. They don't know who you are.
We had a company come to us during coronavirus, and it was a pretty great workout app. And, you know, the problem was they didn't really have anything that was out of like extraordinary, that was new and exciting. You've got 250,000 workout programs on apps. So how are you different from all the rest of the 250,000? And, you know, that's the hard part. And when you expect to have a Wall Street Journal or a publication like that right out of the gate, you're almost like, that expectation is way too high. I mean, that's like saying you want to be on the Today Show. And it's like, you know, I think over the course of time, like all the experts that we've worked with in the wellness space, I've had one person that was really unhappy, that thought that they were going to get on the Today Show. That was their only thing, you know. And at the end, I was thinking, well, listen, this shouldn't be the end of your PR journey. Just because our 6 months is ended, you should be fulfilling and working towards that goal of the Today Show, because maybe someday you will be on it, but it's all about the timing. And you won't be on it when you think you're going to be on it.
No, you're going to be on it when it's convenient for them. I think, that's another thing is you know what, a killer is when you're pitching, right? Your team is pitching, and then they get back to you and they're like, okay, great. We'd like to speak with so-and-so tomorrow, and they're not available. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, we had a brand, actually, it was a big Pilates brand and nationwide brand. And we said, okay, they want to do a segment. They're going to tape it at one of your locations. So we need the location, and we need you to get back to us like in 24 hours. 2 weeks later, they said, well, and we kept calling and like, we were on our end, we were horrified.
Panic.
you better get back to us. And 2 weeks later they said, okay, we're ready. And we were like, that boat sailed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. And then you're like, we spent so much time and energy getting you that opportunity, but then you skipped or missed so if you're doing PR, I think one thing to take away from this conversation is be ready, be ready to wait and be ready to be ready. Right? It's like both of those things.
Yep.
So you talked a little bit about ROI and how intense people get about ROI. How are you measuring and tracking success as you're running these like influencer or just brand PR programs? What are some good measurements for people to be like, okay, we're doing a good job, or okay, this is working and building? Because sometimes, again, it's not always the segment that you want, but it might be some other stuff, or, how are you measuring that?
Yeah, I think, it depends on where you are as a brand in your journey. I mean, the goals are obviously always different. We ask the client for goals up front. If you're just starting out and you start landing online placements, I feel like that's a really good get. Yeah. You are building yourself up with link backs, whether it's a mention, whether it's a quote, whether it's a full page article. You're consistently building yourself up. And then as you're getting into television, when you're booking TV segments, you're starting off, you're doing local TV segments. And those are the ones that are like, you're getting more familiar. If you're a big fish in a small pond and you live in Los Angeles and you start doing segments on KTLA, number 2 market, you got to think, wow, number 2 market. I started in my town and then I built up and then I went on to national after that. And what we do is we consider all of the measurements through Coverage Book. And we use a program and it gives you the exact specifications of like how many UVMs is Men's Journal. Yeah. And you would say, okay, it's 3 million UVMs for Men's Journal. And then it also gives you what each article would be worth. So
like the ad equivalency.
The ad equivalency. Yeah. So you have that. And if you think about earned media, let's say you did a segment on Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. At the morning hour, and you were on there for 4 minutes, that ad value is almost $300,000. Wow. So the earned media, let's say you're paying $7,500 a month for PR and you're a well-known brand.
You got $300,000 in the bank right there.
Right. So you look at that. So if at the end of your campaign, you spent $60,000 and you add up all the ad value, for instance, we had a client that did 15 segments and that was across the board, 3 nationals and a couple other little peppered, local stuff. And the ad value was about $1.2 million. So you now know that your $60,000 is very well spent, because you can compare that to if you were to just reach out to them without a pitch and without all of the PR help, you would have to pay for that time.
I think also what's important to note is, yes, that's ad equivalency, but also these things are earned media. So they live on. It's not like it doesn't end like an advertisement ends. Yeah. They live on. It's something that you can use in business development. And that's kind of what we've also been encouraging people is like, hey, use your PR across everything that you're doing. Put it in your your sales cycle, like put it as like a little value add, like we've been featured here, or, use it as many places as you can, like to optimize anything that you're spending. You could put it in your business site, your new business cycle. You can put it on your social media. You can put it on your website. And I think that's one place that people can do better at,
I'm glad you brought that up, because we've had a few clients recently who really didn't know what to do with what we did. And I think that it's important on their end to better understand that before they go into PR. And if they don't understand that, to ask their PR person, like, hey, what does all this mean? Like, what can we do with this? There's so many things, you can put on a banner on your website, as seen on Dr. Oz, as seen in, women's health, that kind of thing. And then you can take the segments that you've done, or Instagram lives, or, things like that. And you can create content. You can put it in your newsletter. You can take, that's the kind of stuff that you should be figuring out. Like, now we did this. Now what do we do with it?
I think also the pandemic has made people realize how important content is, and to using their content to the most with the most value possible, creating educational content. So all of this falls into the PR category. And I think that's what's a little bit confusing about, the communication space, right? What's marketing, what's social, what's PR, what's all that stuff. I mean, I think, in my opinion, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm sure you've been similarly doing this. Yeah. It's just like, I feel like it all actually is married together.
Yes.
So if you find a good PR agency, and we kind of had that conversation about how to find a good PR agency, they should be able to bring all those elements together for you, or at least tell you how to do it.
Yeah. I think, listen, every subject matter that we get here at the firm is always different. I mean, it's like, supplements, then it might be a workout program. It might be a natural, clean beauty product, so you're constantly learning and evolving as a business with your clients. I mean, we did something recently with a client that we've never done. And I was like, this is kind of genius. Yeah. We did an audit at the end to see like where our strengths were and where we thought maybe we failed, or where we didn't do enough of. And it actually was a learning process for both parties, because on one end, the client was like, wow, we really didn't do anything with the media. And that's something that we need to do better at. And then we also learned on our end that we need to educate the client better on what to do with the media. So, I think everything is a learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love this conversation. I could keep talking to you forever, but we don't have forever. So I always like to leave people off with something to kind of like do, like a task. Can you give us any kind of special task that, let's say, if someone who's trying to dive into this and try to become an influencer in this space, wellness, lifestyle, tech, whatever space, really, they're all the same. Something that you see as like a hack that they can kind of start trying right away on their own.
Yeah. Well, so with the experts, one thing that I used to tell people was, okay, if you have nothing and you're starting from scratch, let's create a one sheet on who you are, what you do, why you're helping people, and some of the transformational stories that maybe, because I do believe that the transformational stories really help to tell the story of the expert, like how the expert helped that person. So start looking at those and come up with 2 really good stories from clients or people who have done your program or taken your products, and really fit those into you as the expert and why you're doing what you're doing. Then taking that, once you get all that together and you feel like you've got a good one sheet with some bullet points and some facts about you and where you've been featured before, if you've been featured before, and then take that and then really zone in on, coming up with your elevator pitch of who you are and what you do and how you help people. Yeah. I think after that, your PR path begins to become a lot easier.
Open up, right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, I think, the influencer space is ever changing, and it's never going to be like one set way. There's many influencers who never meant to be an influencer, and it just sort of fell into it. But they fell into it because they had a good why, and they were helping people, and they were giving consumers what they wanted. Yeah. And really have to look at that and, what is your story? What's your backstory? Like, all of that stuff is super important. And if you can think about your backstory and why you're helping people, and then come up with a few bullet points, you're obviously going to have an easier time when you're trying to, set out to do what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is amazing. Thank you so much. I think, obviously we talked about health and wellness. That's the space you're in, but this really applies to every area. Yeah. So you can translate this to whatever industry, you're working in. Nicole, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if I'm sorry, what?
Good luck on the PR path with everyone out there who's, I mean, it's a progress, and it takes time.
If someone wanted to find you, please tell them where they can find you.
Sure. Yeah. You can find us on Dunn Pellier TV. That's on Instagram, and then DunnPellierMedia.com. And that's us.
Perfect. And I will also have the information in the show notes, so you'll be able to click links and stuff like that. And we'll probably put, Nicole, your profile, if that's okay, Great. On LinkedIn. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.